So the body of work that's in this show is very much revolving around this idea of architecture and a kind of fictional architecture. 2 years ago, I spent quite some time on Easter Island, which is an island in the South Pacific that has these giant stone sculptures on it. And one of the very strange things that I found on the island is that all of the things that are brought to the island by tourists or anyone else is also left there. And there's a huge dumping site on the island that cameras and whatever people leave on the island is also buried within the context of these historical sculptures that were made 1,000 years ago. Sometimes when I'm in the studio, I am kind of inventing a scenario to work under. And the scenario of this exhibition is that I am, let's say, an archaeologist in the future, sort of uncovering these objects that are from our recent past. So I've selected technological items, things that have some relationship with communication, telephones, film cameras, things that we remember, that we all have a kind of relationship with, but that are not really used anymore. We've all had a Polaroid camera at some point, or one of these radios. And the notion of generating this fictional archaeology by remaking these pieces in materials that relate to geology or have a kind of geological time frame. So the black works, many of which are cast in volcanic ash and glass, obsidian glass, and the white pieces are made in a crystal. So I'm making molds of the originals and then reforming them in these materials that give the sense that these works could have been uncovered on some future archaeological dig. The entire show is very much playing with our sort of notions about time, and the coin pieces, the paintings here began actually by casting actual coins. And within the molds of the coins, I put small bits of crystal, which cause these erosions. When we think about coins, we can find coins from ancient civilizations, from Rome, and they've always, since I was a child, had this relationship for me with time, trying to look back. So to take a contemporary coin and cause it to appear as if it was, that we're looking back at it, it sort of dislocates us as viewers in time. And the glass figure, if any of you are familiar with these still figures from Pompeii, when the volcano erupted and these figures were frozen in a kind of moment. These pieces are made entirely out of small fragments of broken glass that's been sourced from buildings which have been destroyed. So I'm going to architectural salvage companies and buying the glass, sorting it for size so that we have a consistent size, cleaning it, and then recasting it. The works in this series are all made off of full body casts of me, partially as a kind of self-portrait, and also because the process for making these involves standing in that position for up to 5 hours while the mold is setting and drying. But still sort of falling within this idea of a kind of fictional archaeology, generating all of these pieces that sort of float in time. Oftentimes I'm trying to take something that you already know, that you have a familiarity with, and cause it to perform or act in a way that it shouldn't. So sometimes I'm doing that with the surface of the architecture, where it starts to move and flow. And in this case, the architectural material that's being manipulated is the glass, sort of reforming it back into an object with a kind of purpose. During the opening on Monday, if anyone was here, there was a performance that happened in relation to this figure. And for many years before he passed away, I worked with the choreographer Merce Cunningham. And Merce had a very particular way of working, which involved 3 artists, himself, an artist who would make the stage design, and a musician. But he followed very closely John Cage's ideas about chance. And so when he made a piece for stage, he would make the choreography, an artist would make the stage design, and a musician would make the score, but none of them would know what the other one was doing. So it was very much about taking these three discrete forms and blending them together for chance, right? I worked with Merce for many years. Merce passed away, and then I began working with one of his former dancers, who is a choreographer now on his own, named Jonah Beaucaire. And part of the idea with Jonah is to expand on what's possible when he and I know what the other one is doing, right? With Merce, it was never possible for me to make a stage design that the dancers would ever interact with because he never knew what I was doing in the first place. With Jonah, it's exactly the opposite. I will propose a sculptural work to him or a material that can have a kind of movement potential around it, and he will then build the choreography entirely based around that. One of the things that we've noticed in working together is that the audience that's seeing work in stage, that's seeing dance, is not necessarily the same audience that's coming to the gallery. So we've tried to engage that audience by having Jonah create performances that occurred during the opening. And there are these very sort of short, 10-minute long performances that just happen and then they're over. So Jonah made a work that occupied this wall, and there will be photos of it online that you can see, but his description to me of what he wanted to do was to move from one side of the room to the other in the span of 10 minutes, with the audience only remembering silhouettes that are happening throughout. So his movement is very slow, and the gestures that he's creating throughout that are almost like some kind of icon that the audience has, almost like if there was a photo taken just at that moment, right? That's kind of it.